Hi, I am Devon Manney. I am an animator, filmmaker, designer, and a lot of just random other like synonyms for all of those things, somewhat in between.
Devon is an incredible artist and creator. I am wearing a shirt that he designed this year, which is amazing. And
There we go. Almost the whole words, almost all of them.
and
Rob
you're
is really between you.
yes, and you've been so prolific this year. And I thought we would talk a bit about just like you as a creative.
Yeah, I mean, like the prolificness. I agree. Actually, I just realized my like laptop battery's dead. I agree. I think it partially has come out of a state of like I don't want to say manicness, but like it is just a state of like kind of mania that like I think I really felt completely demoralized for like the first several months of the pandemic, and then it just hit a point and hit a stride where things started to break open, and it felt like there was a bigger place for art and creativity, and I think it really did. I wasn't inspired for the first several months of the pandemic, and then I think once it hit, it was just like, oh yeah, why? Like there's a means and an ability to do these kinds of things that I've never thought would be applicable or accessible, and seem actually right now to be more necessary and vital than ever before. So I think that's helped, and also I've just met a lot of really, really amazing people this year that I think challenge me and make me really jealous and inspired all the time. So that is also incredibly helpful to
Well,
the
that's how I feel
prolific.
about you. So I guess that makes sense. Do you want to talk a bit how like your creative journey and how you became an animator and what you do now and all of that stuff?
Yeah. So I grew up in essentially Fargo, North Dakota, which is a relatively, I mean, big for the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's like a relatively okay sized metropolitan area, but it is surrounded in on all sides by 4 hours of absolutely nothing. It is, it's weirdly slightly liberal leaning, though still deep within red territory. Again, 4 hours away from basically any sort of like actual liberal cities with any sort of diversity. I mean, I grew up in a place that, while it was somewhat friendly to the arts, was and is still ultimately a city of and for white Lutherans and only white Lutherans. And so I think grew up pretty bored for the first. I mean, I was a very inspired kid, but I think you realize at a very young age growing up there that I was like, oh, cool, I have to make my own excitement because the winters are long, the summers are just hot. There's only so much that can occupy your time. So, being a tiny boy dressing up in costumes makes the day go by the time I got to be about 10, I had kind of started, really getting into drawing. I'd really loved I don't really know how I got into it, but I just really got the drawing bug and hit it hard. And then around 10, I discovered like Flash cartoons online, like Homestar Runner. And for the first time, it felt like, oh, like this is just two dudes in Georgia who like do this, and this is their entire life, and they didn't like go to school to be animators. They don't live in like Burbank and like work at Nickelodeon. They are just doing this from like laptops, and why can't I? And that was pretty much it. I kind of had like a really cheap ass laptop that like my dad's work had given him, that he was able to like find a like incredibly old copy. At that point, I think it was like 5 or 6 years outdated of like Flash. And I just started learning how to animate and teaching myself how to animate. And because I was in a town that really has no, film infrastructure, certainly no like animation infrastructure, it was just kind of lucky enough that I came of age at a time where that kind of information was relatively accessible online, and easy for, again, a 10-year-old who had who had no external assistance to learn how to and teach himself how to do that kind of stuff. So throughout high school, I just kept, learning and trial and error and making worse and worse and worse stuff until it got slightly better every time. And I mean, pretty much was it. By the time I was in high school, I had started getting into filmmaking and understanding and appreciating film more and independent animation and realizing that I could do more than like little cartoons. I could express myself and express my point of view with the world instead of trying to fit it to what I thought was like mainstream animation or attempt to fit into that kind of hole. And then, it kind of applied. I got into USC. I went to USC's animation program within the film school for 4 years, which was a really lovely and fascinating time, again, to just force me out of the whitest place in America for a couple of years, and was able to kind of, I think, really I mean, I don't want to say come into my own necessarily, but it really gave me the tools and ability to be confident in my point of view. And that pretty much brings me to here. I made a film in college called Cradle. It was my thesis film. I basically spent most of my college career to some extent making it, and have spent the majority of my time after college trying to reach that same level of excitement with my other work.
Which is kind of, for anyone else, I don't know how challenging that would be, but you almost got an Oscar. So I feel like that's crazy, and you got a student Oscar, which is fucking insane.
Yeah, it is. It was one of the busiest couple of month periods of my life, but I don't think I realized it at the time, because the year that preceded any type of award stuff was really the busiest and most upsetting time of my life, because it was making the film. So anything else after that just felt like, oh god, more of this. And I think it took several months after it had all died down for me to kind of understand what had kind of just transpired, and how just impossibly fortuitous any of it was to get to in the first place. But I mean, it's, I think that was definitely the first. I mean, I consider that obviously a really big part of my artistic journey for so many reasons, but I think a huge part of it was that was truly, I think, the first time I made something that that I didn't just hate a week after I finished it. Everything before that was cool, I finished it, I felt really good about it, and then I took some time off, and the second I watched it again, all you see are just these tremendous faults and these tremendous what if I had figured out this, or why was I thinking of it this way. And with animation, it is such a long gestation process to make these things that you have to gain an ability to make decisions while you're making it, because film takes a long time as well. But production time in film is, even for features, is about a month, a couple of months maybe. With animation, a short like the one I did, which was 15 minutes, took, I mean, 9 months, and that was 9 months of me literally pulling 14 hours a day every day. And you just lose track of the same kind of directorial spirit and the clairvoyance of saying, oh god, this is what I'm trying to make. You have to just remember what that is at all times. And usually up until Cradle, that had always ended up in kind of abject failures. And so Cradle, the first time I looked back on something, I was oh, yeah, I can see faults in this, but I think I navigated my way through this and made the thing that I had originally set out to make, for better, for worse. And that's, I think, something that I've definitely, I think, always tried to be kind of present in since then, to try to make sure that whatever I'm doing, I keep in mind those first thoughts, those first inhibitions, and just kind of use those as a North Star throughout the entire production.
And I think that's also just awesome, really good advice to leave this off on, is that kind of like creative drive and spirit to know what you're working towards and to kind of be present and sit with it. So
Yeah,
thank you for this discussion and learning more about you and just everything. It's so good to see you.
of course. It's so good to see you. I love you so much, and it's great to have some face-to-face contact in this turbulent time, as everyone says now.